So let's get this one done. These videos are more like flow. It's like if I was to present these things in an internal business workshop. This is the kind of thing I used to do with when I had two small companies and we had like yearly workshops and meetings, and it's gonna be that contrast, partly because I'm going through this process myself as we speak, and the other reason is, well, I'll refactor all of this into more like structured presentations later on, depending on how I can make a living and how, like, where the world and like all of the events in the world bring me. So this is the total open source, totally free content that I'm gonna provide. This one is about me basically transitioning, doing that last step. If you've seen any of the stuff I've done before, I've been in media tech since these days. I saw the revolution that came before the internet, that was print media, where 3 years after Murdoch fired all of his typographers, which was a big event, and he had these journalists doing their own desktop publishing, I was doing the same. It was like a student newspaper, and like the student union, or maybe it was a school, invested in a laser printer, which was extremely expensive at those times, like $6,000. Those times it's like a decent second-hand car now, and then 3 months later, well, it was the price was cut in half, obviously. And then some years later, I was doing the same work on an old PC myself as a freelancer, and I was printing my own color prints and scanning my own negatives even. So I've seen all these things, and but I've also been dependent on some of these tools. I think I got started with photo editing on PCs in '96, maybe 7. I think that was Coral Paint, Coral Photos, if that exists. But then I got on a CD via a very interesting guy that a friend of mine knows, and few people meet him, but he's been providing what people need for ages. And so he got me 2 of these CD collections, and one of them on that was, of course, Photoshop. So I started using Photoshop in '98. I think it must have been '98. I was billing based on using Photoshop early '99. Maybe I got some freelance work before that. I think I got some freelance work before that. But '98, '99, all of it was freelance. And then, of course, I get very used to Photoshop. It gets under my skin, like copy CNV and these things goes back to, well, '89 when I got started with desktop, and then the shortcuts and the menus and the underlying technology of like the underlying way of doing software of Photoshop is something that is hard-coded with me. And there are a reason for that. I've been doing videos about workflows, and one example is that a magazine I worked for quite a bit from early '99 for a year, maybe a bit longer. I was doing ads, and we were running quite powerful Mac Power PCs, and on one of them the challenge was to keep Photoshop 305 running, or maybe the founder of the magazine, he had a quarrel with someone else, like he wanted to keep it because it was more effective, because you could take a scan and then you could set up a rectangle that was skewed, and then you do an immediate crop, and it would write itself to this day, I don't think that actually exists, but for someone who's doing high volume scanning of material that people send in, and then you do ads, you save a lot of time. So later I worked on and off like professionally as a photographer, again in high volume. I've always been doing my own creative work on the side, but it's the high volume thing that's been the thing I've experienced where I might be able to contribute the most. So I have this way of seeing it, like I was at two different, well, especially once I worked really high volume on real estate photography, and then every tiny routine becomes extremely important. One of the things that was key was, how do I charge my batteries between two jobs? There's a temperature problem even. I got to a stage where I was able to do the rough edit that we were required to do and upload. To do a full batch in 5 minutes, sitting in my car, starting the upload, and it was uploaded before I got to the next job. And that workflow made me hyper effective. It also led to me getting really ill, and now I realize that was because I was carrying a kind of experimental modem inside of the car. And then I started running a shared studio space, and then I built two companies based on that, which was, one was a B2B photography agency and a video production agency, and the other one was a web co-op. So I got even deeper into this, but I was the kind of the business developer. Both of my partners were that, but it was my role to be the tech backend, to be the kind of architect of the whole company setup and everything. So at some point when Adobe Cloud came, I really didn't wanna get into that. So I kept using my old install for quite a while, but of course my partner and our workers had to get onto Adobe Cloud. And lo and behold, what I feared happened. Something was snagged with my account and I could not get it working, and it was a nightmare, and I was not gonna deal with any of that stinky customer support. So I think I just told my partners, like, I'm not doing much of this anyway, I'll just keep using my old copy, and I can deliver the formats whenever I do some editing. And I think I basically skipped it, or maybe I got it working again. But my point is that Adobe then introduced a single point of failure that is unacceptable in good workflow, especially if you want to have some freedom and some sanity left in the world. So what I have been doing is, I've had a 3 to 5, 6 years period where I've been depending less on Photoshop. I deleted all of it on my iMac some years ago, maybe 21, 22. And why? Because I wanted to see if I can get off that habit of having that piece of software installed. Recently I did some re-editing of lots of old work after I found someone in Kathmandu that's a real mentor for me, like pushing me hard on the content, on the real photography side. And I'm converting everything to black and white, and I'm going through my old archives, and so I did do that in Photoshop, and I spent, was it 1 or 2 days, like going 10 hours in a go and doing this automated thing, just producing a lot. But still, I might need to keep Photoshop because I might get into like support roles again, but I need to fight this dependency, and that's what I've done using Linux. Let's see how. This is the preamble. It's probably too long anyway, but I'm now on in a space where I can say that as long as I can do my own workflow, except for getting these commands and getting everything into my brainstem. Like I'm at a point where I can say with confidence that I can work effectively in the field on Linux only. So I'm going to go through all of these things as an example. So this is Linux Mint. This can be done on any flavor. Linux Mint is the most. Maybe Linux Mint has some issue with graphics drivers and things, but anyway, it works. It works for most people most of the time, which is very different from Linux in '96. So what have I got installed here on top of Linux itself? Well, there are the obvious ones like GNU. This is the Photoshop equivalent of on open source, and you can download like shortcut and menu systems that are based on Photoshop. This time I haven't done that because I want to de-learn what I've learned in the Adobe Cloud and all of those very integrated software suites. I have to rebuild new habits, and I also need to explore what is in this software. So this time I'm running it on menus only, and I'm doing a lot what I did in the beginning with Photoshop. Like a couple of years I spent like all of this time finding everything, and then you end up doing everything like shortcuts. GNU image GIMP. GIMP is a wonderful piece of software. I don't think there's anything you can't do, and there's probably things you can do with GIMP easily that you can't do with Photoshop. And it's all open source, so you can tweak it or you can do whatever if you want or if you need. The next thing is a super simple photo editor. I need that because I need a default super simple workflow for when I'm on the go, or if I'm on a backup laptop, or if something happens and I need to buy a super cheap laptop and I want to keep publishing things, because to be someone out there I need to publish, and if I don't publish as a flow on the go, I'll end up having weeks of work after a long trip, and I'll probably won't publish it. So the only content that matters is what is published one way or another. So Pinta is super simple, and it is full of limitations, which is a very good thing. To have one editor in the flow that is super simple makes you see things in a very different way, and I'm probably going to use this as the last step on everything I do, unless it is high-end pixel perfect content that I normally don't do any longer. Maybe for studio work, we'll see. The next is of course Rawtherapee, which is just a raw converter. I don't like it. Photoshop is much better, but I don't like it because I haven't used it, and there are ways of integrating these that I'm sure I can integrate it in a way that is as effective and easy as Photoshop is, but I don't want to do it because I need to learn each of these software pieces on its own, see how I can combine them, see which ones I can do without, what workflows. Like one workflow can be super simple through Pinta, another can be a little bit more complex through Rawtherapee, or these kind of natural workflows are kind of forming when I publish. These workflows are forming, and what that leads to is that every time I publish something, I'm getting more effective. And also the content itself is kind of shaped by my workflow, so if there is it's this feedback loop in a way. And in some cases I've like from idea to finished posting on Hive, I've gotten it down to an hour in some cases, and people actually reward it, and it's actually good content. But there's been like hundreds of hours on that particular type of content, getting it right, both in terms of the content itself and the workflow, of course. And I'll make templates for myself later on for the different workflows, and this is something that will always pay off to like figure out what you're doing and what is the workflow, what is the template, and how do you augment that, because when you get the workflow, as I said before, you can concentrate on the real creativity. Okay, let's see. So that's the GIMP website here. You've got, I mean, all of these tools have like really good resources. So the next one is basically just a converter, and that is the FFMPEG. It's just a library that can convert any media, and I started using it on the command line. You don't need to use it on the command line. It's good to start with the command line. And I'll dig into that because I got this super user Linux wannabe, if I sink time into it, coder. But you can easily just install something like this. It's a graphical video and audio batch converter. And this is so super simple that it is a wonderful program. I'm going to use that right after doing this. It comes from OBS Studio, which is very stable on Linux as far as I can see. But OBS produces FLV, and I've done command line conversions to save resources on that before, but this time I'm going to use this, and I'm sure it's going to work. So I also got KDN Live, which is video editing. DaVinci works on Linux, but it doesn't necessarily install in easily, and we use that in production. But obviously we used the Adobe Suite most of the time. I've done a bit of learning on Blackmagic DaVinci, so I've already gotten used to a few things, just doing some random, like when our dog visited and saw the sea the first time, like stuff like that. But still, there are like habits forming in my mind around video editing. So, but I'm gonna be on KDN Live from now on. Most of these are also available on all platforms. You don't need to use Linux at the bottom. I think all of these are available for Windows and Mac OS. Then there is let's see. Yeah, there is a package that's called Losslesscut that I have not installed yet, but this is a wonderful piece of software. You need to download it and install it manually on Linux at least. It's a very simple tool, and this is also based on FFmpeg. So this is you can cut the ends of a clip and store it without any loss of the data that is remaining. And for me, that I've tested some other things in video workflow, and one of them was like automatically concatenate, like just splice all my video reels into one big reel using FFmpeg, and then cutting it in an editor. That's a thing I've tried. It might make it's probably not a good habit, because it makes me assume that everything I've recorded has to be in one line in terms of time, one timeline. But having a lot of data and like 4K and my 5K with this Ordro, ideally I should upload my clicks, get my clips onto some hard drive, and then I should go and ideally, because this might not happen when I'm very busy, but I should have a stage in my process where after storing the files, I'll just cut the bullshit in the end. I do not think I would ever regret that, unless there's something serious that I miss. You can always obviously store a copy. And obviously, like if I were to do, I'm gonna do that soon. I'm gonna do like a series of shorts. I'm just gonna go walk around one day and talk about things like this in shorter formats, and then I'll use nothing else than this to cut the ends probably, or maybe I'll have some intro that I'll concatenate as well in a half automated workflow. Yeah, I guess this is most of it. I haven't used this much, but this is a multiple clipboard manager, so like doing posts, and I write a post and then I copy it in case the browser crashes, and then I want to get 2 URLs from different places and I want to insert that in the text. I can have multiple clipboards lined up. It's something I should have. I've tested this like 10 years ago on OS X, and then I forgot about it, and it's a tool that I know I should use all of the time. It's good in the mix here. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'm gonna do a video about like opportunities in this extremely fabulous space that is based on open source code later. It might look like things are really dark, like what happened after the general, like the financial crisis in 7-8, and then also I kept this in mind for a while because I ran this shared studio space, and so many people came complaining. Not the professional photographers that were already renting from me were already established, so they were not too worried, but they did think about it, but they didn't complain. A lot of wannabes, and some that maybe later maybe complained a little bit, but the complainers were taking the obvious fact that digitalization and this horrible stock photo outlets and industrialization of everything has killed photography. Yeah, that's right. But that also means that there are opportunities in there. So my basic idea of starting the photography agency was to just go into the space and just grab a position in spite of everything. And it actually worked quite well, because I wanted to grab the space of doing professional portraits all over the nation, and like doing it in an industrialized way, and maybe branch out later. And I actually met someone who is like an industrialization consultant, and he was like, you've done some really good stuff here, and we could get it into, this could become something. And I could have repackaged everything we did, and I could have presented that to him, and there might have been investors coming in and blah blah, all of this. I'm very happy that I didn't do it, because I know how much this financialization captures people, the planet, everything. It's death. But my point is that we're a little more structured than almost everyone else in the creative space, and that made it possible. The other thing was that we insisted that people need real, natural content, no stock photos, no like glitchy covering up of no fakeness. So we specialized in giving companies a real, natural feel in the photography, and then later video that they were supposed to use in marketing material. I think this is still a good idea. But now, when blockchain and indirectly then economy is literally weaved into everything online, and then there is this fight between privacy and KYC and centralized and decentralized in that mix, because all of the technology, all of the underlying technology, like the stacks or like the pieces of software in this case, is available. AI is gonna more like kill any like development careers inside of these stacks for fiat printer dependent companies, but the building blocks themselves are better than any time before, and ourselves, we can use AI to manage these blocks, and then it's up to our ingenuity and innovation to couple them to build something out of these blocks. This is what I'm looking into for myself now. For now, I'm having a good workflow, and I can publish something about everything I do, and I can travel around, and I can build a network, I can build some reputation, hopefully not a polished reputation. I want to be gritty and unruly. But in there, somewhere in here there is an opportunity almost for everyone who dare to just grab that space and couple these things together. You can easily build a very interesting modern global agency based on open source all the way. It would be harder, but you'd be able to sell it harder. That's the point. You can monetize it. I'll talk about that as well. Okay, that's it for now. I'm very happy with my workflow and my simple tools, and seeing the world the way it should be seen from within open source. Good luck.